Hey, Tony, thanks for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
My pleasure. You're always excited.
Well, I am excited today, not just because you won a national championship or because baseball is my favorite sport. And that's true. I'm not just saying that because you're
I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah. But I actually, you might not know this about me. I used to study leadership. I taught it. Now, of course, I'm trying to do it every day.
Sure.
So I like talking to other leaders and learning, how they go about their business. So that's kind of what I want to focus on. So I want to start with when you arrived, think back. 2018, I believe?
Yeah.
That was your first
In
season?
the summer.
And I'm told, it's before my time, because I would know all this if it was after I got here, but before my time, that you inherited a struggling team, let's put it that way, struggling program. Fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
So talk a little about that. When you walk into a new situation, the program, you immediately probably start seeing things that need attention. How do you go about getting started, hoping to end up kind of where you are now and on that path? Think about that.
Yeah, it's our game. We were just having a team meeting, and the game is a delicate balance. Hold the ball firm but loose. It's a lot easier to coach than it is to play because you can ask guys to seek that out. And for us, it was nice to have a blank slate. Everyone that was a part of the program's leadership had moved on. So strength coach, you name it. We've got a clean slate, and there's no better day in baseball than opening day because you have a clean slate and the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And you're not weighed down by what's going on in the past. But there's a big group of guys that we inherited as players,
right.
And we've got to figure out how to, bond with those guys pretty quick, kind of assess maybe why they didn't perform as well as they wanted the year before and try and make it go quick. So everything seemed like a race. It was going so fast.
Yeah.
And then in recruiting, things are always going fast to begin with, but when you're trying to play catch up with a new job, it kind of, now that I say it out loud, was like three parts: trying to hire all the right coaches, recruit any and all players as fast as possible, and then your most important recruits are always the people that you're working with daily. And so find a way with that first year group of guys.
Yeah. I've thought about that in relationship to, I walked in, I inherited, a team, and then you try to get the right team. How do you go about matching, you need an individual skill set from someone, but you're also looking for this team chemistry, and how do you just go all the way for their skills, or? No,
I think you want to find somebody that's going to fit. In sync is not just the band, or although they're not together anymore, but in sync is such a word we use all the time because you would rather your team kind of be going with the same approach or pulling in the in the same direction, and it maybe even isn't the right theory or approach, but at least there's conviction to it because everyone's going down the same path. So I think having the right individuals that match what you're looking to do helps. Now, you'll certainly make exceptions if a kid's really talented as a player or a coach is just super, dynamic about what he does. Yeah. But kind of streamlining everything was important.
Yeah.
And then I think you got to preach the teammate thing. You can coach that just like you can any other skill set of learning how to be a good teammate.
Yeah. I would think kids coming out of high school, they should already know how to be a good teammate. What's the maturing process, or what does that look like?
That's a decent assumption, but one that I think fades more and more each year because now kids technically have a brand name. They've got Instagram. They are the CEO of their own little company, which is a little bit foreign to maybe when we were growing up.
Right.
And so now more than ever, they need to learn that, the team can actually make them look better. Everybody wants themselves to be propped up a little bit deep down, no matter how unselfish you are. And I think learning that your teammates now can help you do that at this level is important.
Yeah.
At the high school level, there's all these showcases that are individualized or showcase teams where guys will bounce around on different teams from weekend to weekend. This is not a fraternity or sorority with these athletes at Tennessee. It is a family.
Yeah.
It's your pseudo family for the time that you're here, and you better lean on them, and they need to be able to lean on you.
Yeah. People talk about your teams, and it sort of seems this way when I observe it, that each year they have a different personality. And I've heard you talk a little bit about kind of letting that happen. Could you say more about that? Because I think there are other coaches who would be like, this is our culture.
Sure.
You either fit or you don't. But you seem to have a free hand in letting them kind of define that culture. Am I getting that wrong? Or
I don't think so. And I think either way works too. I mean,
yeah,
it certainly is slowing the old, Bobby Knight, or I don't know how Coach Saban necessarily was, but in every sport, football would probably be the toughest one to do it. There's more and more flexibility because of just how things have changed.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know that we have one particular philosophy, but I think to have personality, you got to have personality. So when the guys first show up, we encourage them to be true to who they are. And, in any work environment, you can't fool anybody for more than a couple days.
Right.
I mean, your true self is going to come out. So by the end of the semester, we will know who these kids are. Yeah. Are they going to know who they are?
Yeah.
I think they need to start with themselves and figure out what's their niche and what do they like, what do they don't like, and be comfortable in their own skin, so that they're the best version of themselves. And if we have a bunch of people doing that, then we got a bunch of guys that are the best version of themselves. Now we got to get them to just kind of work together, and that kind of initiates the piece of, okay, where's the give and take? I know who I am. I like this kind of music. I know who you are. You like this kind of music.
Yeah.
Who gets the aux cord in the locker room today?
So what about like players? Now I'm thinking back to high school ball, but how much playing time, where you are in the batting order, all those individual things that are important to individual players versus maybe I'm going to be the DH. I'm not going to be in the batting lineup like I used to be. Or how do you balance that and help kids learn to give up a little to get more as a team?
Yeah, that's difficult. And I don't know where the starting process for that is, but I know a part of it is getting guys to look long term. Nowadays, you want to hear one song, you just go to Spotify and these guys can do it right away, or they want some info, it's TikTok or whatever it might be. Everything's so instantaneous, but it doesn't matter what generation you come from, long-term vision is incredibly important, and then you can rear it back. And so in the long run, what are you trying to do? Are you just trying to be the starting first baseman at Tennessee, or are you trying to be playing well when you're the first baseman? Are you trying to have success as a team? What do you want your legacy to be when you come back to a football game against Florida and you ask for tickets and you're sitting around? Like, what do you want your legacy to be? And I think a lot of them are so wrapped up in the moment. I had a good day, I didn't have a bad day. They don't see that future. And I could ramble on more about it, but I think it's important to see all the way to the end of the runway and then press rewind. I say press rewind on the VCR still, even though there's no VCRs. But, press rewind. And now here you are on this day. What do you need to do to get there?
I think in my role, one of the things I think I am supposed to be doing on my best days is helping the team remember like what the long-term vision is. And there are some days when I think people, I really don't want to hear that today. I just want to get through today.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, if you're not doing it, if I'm not doing it, who's doing it? I mean, do you agree with me on that? Or?
Yeah, I think the message is received better when the sender is that. Yeah. And the one thing I know about you is you are very consistent. Maybe I need to be like that. Sometimes I get a little too fired up. It depends. You get a recruit, you don't. You win a game, you don't. But I think when the messenger kind of embodies what the message is, then it's much more likely to be received. Yeah. And then on top of it, show and tell is way better than talk. Yeah. And so if there's a message, but also a vision of like, oh, I can see an example, I think it's much more likely to be followed.
I'm thinking back to your team in the spring of 21. And that baseball team was important to me for probably different reasons, I'm sure, than important to you. But I think of that as that was the first event coming out of COVID where we could go and sit next to people. Mm-hmm. And this community just became in love with baseball. And I really think of the baseball program as having pulled us out of COVID. Were you aware of that at the time, or were you just thinking like, okay, how are we going to get in a game, not get sick, not get tested a million times?
There was a lot going on, but I think there was some awareness to it. I got goosebumps as you were talking about it because the timing is not, regardless of what your faith is or how much you believe in karma, for that to all sync up the way that it did was insane. And it was certainly enjoyable to be a part of, and it was a huge stepping stone for us to be in a position where you all are building us a bigger park, and we have more resources now, and we recruit better players, and we were eventually in 24 we're able to win a big game there against A&M. But yeah, the one thing about that team is COVID actually helped create that team, and then that team helped get everyone out of COVID. And what I mean by that is our 2020 team was our first team around here, our third year, where no, we were not in the top 25 or anything like that. And as coaches, you're usually trying to undersell. In the office, we were cocky. We knew we were going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And we were able to win some games. I think you were even down in Round Rock. We beat the number one team in the country at the time.
That's right.
And everything's going great, and it stops. Oh. And everyone in our facility, including our players, were very, very bitter about, we'll leave the political stuff aside, but they were bitter about not getting to finish that season. And they feel like they missed out on an opportunity to go to Omaha and all these other things. And so it exploded in 21.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you about the picture we all saw in Omaha. There you are. We see through the game, Coach Barnes is there, Coach Heupel. At the end of the game, we see how much you guys mean to each other. Just talk about that a little bit, that being part of a culture like that. What is that like? Those guys come to Omaha kind of for you, really.
Well, I'd like to think we're buddies. It's just our schedule doesn't really allow for us to do the normal things, and then you got different seasons, so it doesn't all sync up. And it's like that with other coaches on campus, too. Those guys just had the ability to be there at that particular time, which meant a lot. And they're there for the university, too. Yeah. But if I was really going to get to just the basics, back of an index card type info with those two guys, I'm very thankful that they're there, but I'm thankful to Coach Barnes because he's a mentor. He does it sometimes subtly, other times it's directly to me, like when I was around Augie Garrido, this or that. And then also he shows how to be a leader on campus he's certainly a gentleman off the court, and then on the court, I'm sure there's some days those players are like, this is hell. But he knows how to get the most out of his players. Yeah. Going back to your leadership example, when he gives a piece of coaching advice to me, the advice is great, but then I can see it, not just on his resume, but day to day. Yeah. And then Coach Heupel and I share a bond because we both worked at a similar place before. Mm-hmm. I grew up watching him. Yeah. And he's what I love athletes to be. Just be a dude that's a good dude off the field, relaxed. Yeah. And then on the field, save your energy for because off the field, it's like we could hang out for 5 hours. If I see him at practice, he doesn't even acknowledge my presence. He's too focused on what he's doing. Yeah. But anyway, in a rambling answer, the thing about the football coach, when that guy is such a good guy like Coach Hype is, it affects the entire university. Yeah. It's I'm sitting next to the most powerful person maybe on campus, but one of it on every campus is that football coach. True. And when they're generous and they're easy to deal with and they don't have an ego that is like a cloud over the campus, and people that have dealt with this know what I'm talking about, it is massive. And there's no way we could have the success that we do without him letting us use the facilities and other things. That's the truth.
I see you and Karen weekly at times. I've seen baseball players at softball games, maybe occasionally. I've seen football players there definitely off season. How does that come about, that kind of spirit?
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the same team, and my answer obviously will be prejudice. We're teammates. We've got the good-looking orange shoes on and all that. But I've also been at other schools, and you've also seen other settings. It is not normal what is currently going on here. Mm-hmm. The way the athletes engage one another, the way everybody helps, and it can involve the training staff, strength coaches. Everybody seems to be looking out for one another, and if there's it doesn't have to be a recruit either, because if there's a big recruit, a lot of people know. There's plenty of text messages that go out, and it may seem subtle. Oh, you're here. Yeah. But I'm just talking we had a little league team checking out our field yesterday, and anyone they came across around our campus was incredibly friendly and welcoming and things like that. Yeah. And so what's going on is a dynamic atmosphere, and you've helped spearhead that, but it is winning us games on the field, not just our sport, but the others. And it's also just making it more fun to come to work and more fun to wear. Yeah. There's people that work at places where it's like, I'm loyal to the paycheck and the coach, the teammates right next to me, but everybody else can take a hike. And I don't see that here.
You did an interview, I think it was after the Super Regionals this year, where you talked about what success meant to you. Do you remember that? Like, could you just say a little bit?
Yeah.
So what for Tony Vitello does that mean?
Well, I feel the need to kind of rehash that. In my mind, a reporter from Evansville probably tried to help his team win and spark some controversy about our 2022 team, about them losing. And if you think wins and losses on the scoreboard are the equivalent to wins or losses in life, but also what you have to hang your hat on every day, you are going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And then even if you don't go crazy and you're that guy, I'm just going to throw out Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
He's Peyton and him are buddies, so I'm a fan now too, and he won so many games. But just because of some of his expressions and his work environment, was he truly happy every day despite getting the wins? And I can't answer that, only he can. But I know if that's all you're chasing and you don't have a balance a little bit in life, even then you might be miserable. But if that's what you're looking to do every day, so you better define what success is to you. Again, to kind of look out in front. If I look back on my life or my career and I want it to be successful, what does it look like? And then backtrack. How am I going to do that daily? Is kind of a short answer.
That's a good answer. Okay, last question. People ask me this all the time, and I'd like to compare your answer to mine. Who is the person that's probably inspired you the most as a leader in your life?
Well, are you going to give your answer after I give mine? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
But I want to know why on yours.
Well, I think it's my dad, and I think, having principle is enormous. And he was a man of principle to, I won't say a fault, but to a point where it was in your face. You knew exactly what he stood for. And I think some people think I don't have a filter, but compared to him, I definitely have a filter. But it's like, this is what I believe, and stood by it, and then also just ultra competitive.
And he was a coach.
And he was a coach, and obviously did a great job keeping our family, together and happy. And we didn't have money raining down on us or anything like that either. So that's who it was, and it was day in and day out for me. But I've been around so many others too, and you can almost kind of put together, if you're a person that follows leaders, you could put together your perfect leader with a little bit of this guy and a little bit of that. But I would take the most from the guy that I was around the most, and who's one of the most competitive individuals I've ever known. And again, somebody who doesn't really bend for what their principles are, which is challenging to do.
And he's so fortunate getting to be part of this success you're having.
Yeah, I'm aware he tries to take over the team when he comes to practice or whatever it might be. But it's great. It's great to have him be around and the guys be good to him. But I think they're good to him because they enjoy him being around. And I've had to welcome the fact that I'm referred to as Tony, even though it's, you call your doctor Doc, but maybe that makes sense because the real Coach Vitello, as they say, is my dad.
Well, that's respectful. Okay, so mine would have been my dad also.
Yeah.
And he was a pastor, Methodist minister. And I put him up there because I think about the way believe it or not, churches have a lot of conflict inside them. People seem to like to fight with each other over dumb stuff.
Sure.
It's not over the big stuff, like whether it's a God or not. It's over things like, where are we going to put the soda machine and stuff like that. My dad always was able to get conflict resolved in a way that nobody left mad or disrespected. And so I've always admired that about him and hope that I can do some of that myself.
Sure.
And he spoke up. He spoke truth to power better than anyone I know. And so I think about him when I have to, speak up now and again about certain things.
Right. No, you got to put out more fires than probably anybody around here.
Well, I feel grateful to be here at this time. So thank you for doing this today.
No, I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
for
awesome.
Certain.